So you're right. Everything that's done in an office, whether it be recare or answering the phone or scheduling new patients or marketing calls as they come in that SMC has generated, then you're going to want to be able to answer those effectively.
People around the world are willing to work whatever time you want them to work, whether that's in the morning or afternoons, whatever that lines up with their area. So if you're paying all in, which is a great point, like all those fees, you can go from 4,000 to 2,000. That's going to free up that money. And that's huge. That's huge because that gives your team not only the ability to focus on the patient when they come into the office, but also just frees up capital, which is so important because every cost of goods are higher, labor's higher. All right, we are live. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about outsourcing. And is there a way to actually outsource your front desk at a fraction of the cost with zero the hassle? We're going to talk about time zone differences, cultural differences. And is this a better strategy than actually just going down the street and hiring in a waitress at full salary and training and all those kind of things? And in today's episode, JW is going to be helping us out. So stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the owner of SMC National, where we help offices just like yours level the playing field against the big guys out there so you can grow the way that you want, but you can't grow if your office isn't answering the phones, which is a big problem. 35% of the industry doesn't answer the phones during normal business hours. And today I have JW, who is the managing partner at Support DDS and ZimWorks. His objective is to assist organizations to leverage growth, increase productivity, and manage costs, free up time with virtual teams. And he's really good at it. So he has a lot of experience. So JW, let's just jump right into this. How is there a way to actually outsource your whole front desk team and do it at a fraction of cost without a ton of hassle?
Yeah. And you are the GOAT, Gary. You are the GOAT, no doubt about it. And you got to go T to match, the GOAT T to match. Get it? All right, covered. No, I think you're right. Look, the only thing you really, and actually we've had one client do this, the only thing you really can't outsource, it would be that person that's greeting the client, greeting the patient as they come in the door. That typically needs to be done by a person, although we've had somebody do that remotely with their front desk during the COVID time. So it's possible. But you're right. I mean, when you look at in the dental industry specifically, when you look at the most important thing, the most important aspect, it's going to be the patient, the guest, the client. And if you want to give them the utmost attention, let's not have that front desk on the phone. So you're right. Everything that's done in an office, whether it be recare or answering the phone or scheduling new patients or marketing calls as they come in that SMC has generated, then you're going to want to be able to answer those effectively, right? Why would you spend money with Gary Bird and his team and drive calls and then say, oh, I'm only going to answer about 65% of those? So yeah, you're right. It's a problem. And I think it can be solved with outsourcing.
Okay. So is it hassle free or is there bumps that people need to worry about?
Yeah, there's bumps. You know, and look, I don't want to scare and say, oh, just give us a call and plug and play and you're ready to go. We do have dental trained, what we call dental certified coordinators, and they understand the process. And we've got subject matter experts that can help our team members along the way. But you have to give us, what is your culture? What is your style? How do you, what do you have certain scripts you want? Do you have certain ways you get handled? How do you do scheduling? Are you going to schedule them with Dr. Oliver one way and Dr. Bird a different way? You have to know those things. So there is a training in terms of easier. I think in the long term, it's easier, but it does require some attention and training up front.
Got it. Okay. So it's the training, attention. And then what about time zones? How does that work out? Right. Because a lot of times you have people, in a time zone, maybe it's 8 a.m. and it's early morning and we're getting started. Maybe it's nighttime somewhere else who's answering the phones. How do you guys sort that out?
Yeah. So good question. We actually have clients all the way from Hawaii time zones, Alaska, throughout obviously the central Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, and then all the way into the UK. So we actually match up with their time zone. So let's say I know you're there in California, or at least I presume you're in California today, and you are on the Pacific time zone. They can either match up exactly. They work a 9-hour shift, 8-hour workday, 40-hour week. So they could work 8 to 5. a lot of our clients will adjust it so they catch those clients into the later evening. Let's say you knock off at 5 but you want your staff to team members to answer it from say 6 or even 7. We can adjust that 9-hour shift so where you're answering calls or even coming in early as well.
Got it. Okay. So basically people around the world are willing to work whatever time you want them to work, whether that's in the morning or afternoons, whatever that lines up with their area. And is there any difficulties around that, or is it pretty straightforward that they're just working at night when you're opening up, or is there any other complications?
Well, look, there's always people that may eventually say, "Look, I'm changing, and I want to work the day shift." But we've now got 1,200 people who are working those odd hours, so we've created an environment where everybody's working similar hours. Let's call it 1 p.m. in Africa time to maybe 1 a.m. So they're all in that 12-hour frame. So we've got a lot of camaraderie, building a lot of teamwork. So they come in knowing the hours that are going to be worked, and that's the expectations as well.
What about cultural differences? So one disconnect that I've seen with a lot of practices is like, and we're fully remote. So I'll say that my company's fully remote, and there's difficulties around culture when it comes to fully remote teams, especially when you're running some people in office, some people not in office, and they're from another country. How do you guys manage that, or how do you recommend that clients manage that?
Yeah, that's even maybe the one of the biggest points we stress when we're bringing on new clients is they have to be integrated into your culture. And I know you probably have to work hard at this. I know we do as well. We're fully remote. We got about 12 people in the US that have to come together quite frequently. And then of course our teams from Central America and in Africa. But yeah, a lot of ways you can do that. We really recommend once a month doing a virtual lunch where people bring in their lunch and they have a chat, they get to know each other, even ask the doctor if they can to sit in on those for 15, 20 minutes, virtual coffees, include them in your if you have a Wednesday, say huddle meeting during the middle of your week, include them in that, strategy meetings, celebrate birthdays, celebrate anniversaries. All those are things that make them a unique member of your team. And I can tell you, we have a really low attrition rate. It's 1%. National or worldwide average is somewhere between 12 and 15% for outsourcing. We maintain that 1% because we push really hard. Make sure they're a part of your culture. Don't treat them as an outsourced third party that's not going to be beneficial to you. So bring them into there, bring them into your culture, and they'll assimilate really fast.
What are the actual savings? So if let's just talk about like some baseline. So if I want to hire a front desk person, I'm going to probably, with health insurance, with payroll taxes, with all these other things, I'm probably going to pay $4,000 a month to hire one front desk person. What am I looking at if I come and work with you guys? What's the savings there? And I know it's different, right? If you're in California, it's more expensive versus Idaho is minimum wage is going to be lower. So I realize that. That's why I'm kind of giving you that threshold. Let's say it's around $4,000 all in. What's the savings they're going to look like?
Yeah, I think depending on the part of the world you're in, and that's a really good thing too. When somebody goes out and says, "Oh, I hired somebody for $15 an hour," the average says you need to add 35% on top of that with benefits and health insurance and everything else. So, your $15 an hour turns into $21, $22 an hour. You're going to find that we're in 50%, somewhere between 40 and 60% is the range, depending on the location. But if you could peg it at 50%, that's a pretty good number. And that's going to be an all-in savings for you on an annualized or a monthly basis too.
So yeah, so if you're paying all in, which is a great point, like all those fees, you can go from 4,000 to 2,000. That's going to free up that money. And that's huge. That's huge because that gives your team not only the ability to focus on the patient when they come into the office, but also just frees up capital, which is so important because every cost of goods are higher, labor's higher. So anything you can do to really cut down on that cost is going to help you and help your office and give you the ability to be able to grow. Now, what are some of the downsides to outsourcing? What are the things that you would say, these are the things that you need to be really careful of and you really need to think through before you outsource your phone?
Yeah. I think real important to think about this is don't believe that there's a unicorn. if you don't have somebody in your office that's doing your answering your phone, doing your scheduling, doing insurance collections and verifications, and then also helping you with your social media and marketing. We have people that call us all the time like, and somebody to do all that. Like, well, we probably don't have that unicorn available today, So the number one thing is determine, and I always tell the doctor, you want to get, or the office manager, whatever, to get the buy-in from your office. Make sure that your team there agrees that, wow, we need help in this area. So now you have that buy-in. So that's the number one. That's the number one downside is your team doesn't buy into it. The doctor may have come to this podcast or meetings. Man, we're going to do this outsourcing, but they don't get the team involved. That's probably the number one thing. And then secondly is really make a good job description. Too often, we have clients that go in and they've just been, yeah, I want one of these dental coordinators. Well, that's fine, but let's talk about what are the specific things you want them to do. Because when we onboard you, we have a person that helps measure our KPIs and metrics and does reports and customizes that. So then we're going to come up with that. So that's usually what's not done is you get a warm body, you stick them in there. You didn't give them a clear set of directions. You don't have reporting mechanisms, and it can be a catastrophe. So making sure you understand what you want and then making sure your team has the buy-in as well.
Great points. What about, I've heard people say this, what makes this better than like hiring a good waitress from down the street? Besides the cost savings, what's the other upside for somebody just grabbing somebody off the street?
And I don't want to degrade any positions out there, right? But I think when you look at just hiring somebody, let's say for that minimum wage, let's say you could go hire somebody. I don't know, Gary, where you're at. I imagine $15-$16 is probably the minimum you could probably find somebody for. You're typically going to get somebody who may have a high school education, may or may not, may have a GED, may have a high school education. And so just the professionalism and the level of expertise that you get, I think are just not comparable. Our team members, 94% of them have finished their college education. They have a university degree. So they're quite bright in helping become part of your team. And then they can really help bring value, not just, hey, I got somebody answering my phone. That's important. But how else could they bring value? Maybe they'll say, you know what, I'm noticing on 8% of these calls, they're really interested in learning more about our membership program. Could we promote that more? So I think you'll get better feedback when you get a higher quality person as well.
As somebody starts to do this, or let me ask it this way, why wouldn't just everybody do this then? Because it sounds really, really good. Like, is it because people just don't understand? Is it the fear of outsourcing? Like you lose control? Like what's the hang up? Because I know you talk to a lot of people about this. So why, if it's half the price, you're going to have, and I've measured it, you're going to have similar conversion rates. So it's not going to hurt you on like converting and the customer service and that side of it. Frees up your team. You're going to have a more professional, more well-rounded person than anybody that you can hire in the States at that dollar amount. Why isn't everybody doing this in the dental industry?
Yeah, I think it's easy. You probably heard that acronym. I've heard it in church many times about fear, false evidence appearing real, right? And I think that's what it is. First of all, we have this idea that every single person that we're going to outsource, English is a second language. And so we believe that, oh my goodness, I can't have them answering my phone. But Gary, as you've met some of our team members and you've seen them with some of the events, what we have to offer is that Queen's English, and that really makes a difference. It's a very much better than my Texas slang accent. So I think it's the accent, just a misconception that that's what it is. And I think the second part of that is data security. People start worrying about cybersecurity and hacking and things like that. And I can tell you, and this comes from Black Talon Security, who we work with, protects all of our clients and our own servers. Actively, all 1,200 plus of our systems are monitored by Black Talon, and we probably have better protocols and SOPs and biometric entry into our facilities than even the doctor's offices who have somebody working at the front desk, as you pointed out, maybe somebody hired off the street. That's much more dangerous to have sitting at your front desk than where we have monitored. So I think it's that. I think it's number one is, oh my gosh, this outsourcing is going to be a language barrier. Number two is, what about the data security? Number three is, I just don't have time to do it. Man, I don't have time to train these people. Well, newsflash, if you hire somebody in your office, you're training them as well. So it doesn't eliminate that process.
Awesome. Is there anything else that I forgot to ask you that you think is important for the audience to understand if they're going to outsource their front desk or even other positions?
Yeah, I think a lot of people worry about getting tied up into really long-term agreements. There's so many companies that want to tie you up into even 2 years, but for sure 1 year, and you're locked in. You're like, man, what if this isn't going really good after 4 or 5 months, or I just don't like it, or my business comes down? We don't do that. We've got a 30-day in or out, and so you can call us and say, hey, it's not working out for me, and we're happy to do that with 30 days notice. So that's probably one of the biggest. Same hours. The biometric. Oh, I might add, I kind of touched on security. Nobody works from home. That's one of the biggest issues when you're looking at outsourcing. People tend to say, "Oh, I've been using somebody from wherever, and wow, the power was always out, or they didn't have good internet, or I heard dogs barking, or cats meowing, or babies crying, or whatever." Right? And so I think the fact that we work in our facilities, we don't have any of the work from home, is a really, really game changer. So the things you mentioned that make a big difference: no work from home, speaking the Queen's English, the university education, those are things that really, truly set us apart and are important for the client as well.
Amazing. What if someone wants to reach out to you and learn more about what you guys are doing? What's the best way to get in touch with you and kind of figure out if this is something that would work for them?
Yeah, go to supportdds.com. Just support. I don't know how to spell that one. SUPPORT, DDS.com. You can email me, jw@supportdds.com, and happy to answer and direct any questions. And I'll tell you what we'll do. Gary. This is like the Ginsu Nice deal, right? Like we have, but wait, there's more. But wait, there's more. We've got a one-time startup fee that's $1,000 for a new client that comes on board. And I'll tell you what, if they'll mention that they heard it on the Gary Bird GOAT podcast, all you got to do is just tell us you heard it on the GOAT podcast. We'll knock that in half. So we'll knock off $500. So we don't do that a lot, but happy to do that. Just to say we'd love to have somebody come and check us out as well.
Awesome. Amazing job. Thanks so much for coming on. You did great. And we love you. We love working with you. We have a lot of clients that use you guys, and they're all really happy. So amazing job. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Gary. Good to see you.